Time is your biggest asset you have as a human being. That's something nobody can pay you enough for.
Wilson Buduzi Obeneme is a professional in the energy sector, specializing in digitalization and production, boasting nearly a decade of experience.
What you do day to day, not everybody does it the way you do it.
Recently, Wilson has directed his focus towards empowering individuals to unleash their potential and boost productivity through simple techniques and digital tools, leveraging the power of artificial intelligence.
To be very productive, you need to have the right level of energy to do the things you need to do daily. If your energy is not up there, you will not be very productive.
He's also a public speaker, serving as the host of the GrowthPlug podcast and the driving force behind the GrowthPlug newsletter, where he shares insights on career transition, digitalization, productivity, and professional development.
Don't think about who is going to like it, who is not going to like it. Forget about that. Just do it. Start.
Hey, I'm your host, Gabe Marusca with the Masterpreneur Show. Quick one before the episode starts. About 80% of you watching, you didn't hit that follow or subscribe button. If you get any value from this, if the stories we share and the learnings that you get from my guests help you or your business in any way, can you please do me a favor and hit that follow or subscribe button? It helps the show more than you can even imagine, and the bigger the show gets, the better the guest gets. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Hey Wilson, welcome to the No Muscle Entrepreneur Show.
Hi Gabe, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, and I really looking forward to our conversation since you have such a magnificent transition. Just 11 years ago, you were an apprentice in a car service, and today you're working for one of the biggest companies in the world in an energy sector. How that happened?
First of all, thanks once again for having me. I think it's been an exciting journey, a very good one as well. Studied mechanical engineering in the university. I have a master's there as well. And for me, one of the things that made me start as an apprentice was because I wanted to understand beyond the theory what we were doing in class. I know for most engineering students, and it depends on what part of the world you're schooling, but from the part I was coming from, we had very little practical experience. We did a lot of theories, a lot of equations, but one of those days I talked to my dad, I need to learn what makes up an engine, how does it operate beyond the equations and the theory. And yeah, that was my very first, I'll say, work experience. And it's something I cherish because for me, it taught me different things. It taught me humility. It taught me to ask questions. It taught me to be open-minded to learn. And ever since that time, I've just had to go through different cycles with different companies, internships, and yeah, now I'm fortunate to work in a very good company that I enjoy really working with. High level, a quest for knowledge. I don't even think I made money out of that apprenticeship. That's the funny thing. In fact, my dad, if I remember, had to pay for me to do that apprenticeship because I told him for me it was about the knowledge, right? I just wanted to really understand what I was studying in the university. I like practicals. I like to understand things. And so we talked to them, and I think there was even a little fee or something for that. But it went really well, and I'm grateful for that experience. And ever since then, I've been chasing knowledge ever since.
That's life, right? We just go on this quest of acquire knowledge and grow as we go. And speaking of growth, you have the GrowthPlug newsletter and podcast aside of your full-time job. So that's something I always admire are those that make time to do something outside of their full-time thing. How that idea came to life for you?
So I'm a firm believer that my job is a very important part of what I do, but it's not the only thing I enjoy doing. And not just me, I believe other people as well. Though we spend most of our time at work, right? But there are some other things we enjoy doing. Some people enjoy making music, writing things, making videos beyond what they do day to day. And I think it's even more exciting when what you do at work also plays into what you do or you enjoy doing. And I think that's my situation. So I work in a team where we're all about productivity. We're all about improving things rapidly, building quick solutions to problems. And for me, it has always been something I really enjoyed. In fact, that was one of the reasons why I joined the team, because of that energy, that drive. And for me, like I said, I have always loved the idea of being better, no matter what level I find myself. I just want to be better. And then I started looking out for other opportunities to share what I know and what I'm learning as part of my development, my personal development goals. And I think one of those days I attended some conferences. And after making presentations, some people came to me and they were like, "We love the way you present. We love your confidence, how you talk. We love the ideas you have." Someone actually asked me, "Have you thought about being a speaker? Have you thought about writing content?" And I'm like, okay, so that makes sense. Maybe I should start documenting some of the things I do in my day to day, in my job and outside my job that helps me grow. And that was how the idea was conceived, the growth plug, where the idea is whatever will help people grow, you give it to them. If people who will also help them grow, you bring them on a podcast for them to talk about what they do. And maybe someone out there will listen to it and be inspired, be motivated, be encouraged to grow. So that was how the GrowthPlug brand started. More or less, it's just dishing out daily tips on growth and helping other people on their growth journey.
And that's fantastic because indeed, any experience that you have, our either full-time job or day-to-day activities, if you document that and share with others, it's an easy way for them to grasp knowledge and experience from others without actually going through it. And of course, after that, they can apply it and grow. And that's a brilliant way to transform your skills and passion into something useful for the world. How much fulfillment that brings to you since you started?
So I'm usually happy when someone just writes me to say, "Thank you for dropping this tip. I actually used it and it worked for me." And I try to share some of the reviews from time to time. Recently, I'll just share one. Someone reached out to me to say, "Thank you for the piece of advice you gave me when we met at the conference. It encouraged me to do this, to do that." And it just brought so much joy to my heart because that's why I do what I do, right? To help someone who was in doubt, probably lacking confidence to see that you can do it, you can be what you want. You just need to be consistent. You just need to be dedicated. So for me, that's where the real joy comes from. Like you said, the fulfillment, where I know I'm helping somebody be better than they were yesterday. And it's also helping me grow. So my biggest reward is seeing someone say, the advice you gave, or the tips you left, or the podcast, or the newsletter helped me do something better, and I'm better than I was the previous day.
That's powerful indeed, because when we have impact on other people's lives, even by a small tip or by a small guidance or direction that we give them, can literally touch their life in a positive way. A lot of people don't realize that they have knowledge and experience that can share, and they are probably just afraid to do so. Do you experience anything similar when it comes to putting yourself out there, start interviewing others, start creating your newsletter? There are any fears that you have to overcome in order to start doing so?
Yeah, I think at first everyone always has that hesitation. What if they don't like it? What if what I'm saying doesn't make sense? Yeah, those are things that you always need to go beyond to start what you need to do. And I always tell people progress over perfection, right? It's progress. The way I was writing when I started is not how I'm writing today. The way I speak, the way I communicate is not the same. And if I'd waited to be perfect, then I would never start. I won't even know where I need to improve on. So those fears sometimes come up, and it's fine. I think everybody who starts something at some point, there will always be that initial doubt or worry, but you just need to keep going. You just need to keep growing as well. So those things will show up, those things will come up, but make sure you keep moving and you just keep doing what you are doing, because at the end of the day, you build, you improve. It's an iterative process. So those fears come up, but we just keep going day by day and we get better at it. And be open to feedback. I think that's very necessary. I have quite a lot of people who give me positive feedback, constructive ones, which I then learn from to improve what I'm doing. So if you're scared of it, I'll just tell you, just do it. You'll be surprised how far you can go. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially that's that important piece that you mentioned, that to be open to feedback, to get better, be open to improve. Like anyone, when you start, you just have a certain amount of experience, knowledge, and so on. But as you go, you keep improving, keep doing things better. You're the proof for that. And when it comes to getting better, there is a lot of noise out there, a lot of information that we can get lost into. How do you make sure you keep improve your skills and also learn from the feedback of others without being distracted?
Very good question. Just like you said, there are lots of distraction. There are a lot of information as well. But what I've done is zoom into some people who I follow. One, some books I read. I don't believe in reading 100 books and not being able to practice from it. I believe in taking one book at a time, read it comprehensively, come up with good points that actionable things you can do, and go do them, right? And when people give you feedback, turn them to actions, right? Create a SMART goal, the typical SMART framework we use. Make it something that is smart, is measurable, is specific, is something that there's a timeline to it. So that helps you have a structure around your growth, right? So beginning of the year, I have a target to read certain amount of books, attend certain number of conferences, talk to certain number of people. Those are my personal goals for development. And I try to follow that plan, and I try to make sure that plan for growth is being followed, that I can be up to date and yeah, up to speed with what's happening around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. What I love about it that you plan this personal improvement in your day-to-day activities. And I think self-improvement, self-help, and as well self-care, we should always factor in inside our schedule, not just our business, our job, and so on, and all the other we left aside, because that's where we don't grow. You mentioned the SMART framework, and for those that are not aware, can you break it down for them and explain how you apply it in your life?
Yeah. So the SMART framework is one of the popular goal setting frameworks. So the S is for specific, the M is for measurable, A is for achievable, R is for relevant, T is for time bound. So this is something I've been using for a long time. So that's why I can talk about it both in my job and outside my job. When you're setting goals, right? Some people they set unrealistic goals because they don't have any guidance. And what happens is, since it's not realistic, it's difficult to achieve sometimes. And if it's not achievable, it tends to affect how you then perceive yourself. So, as part of the goal setting framework, the SMART framework, I'll give a typical example. So, I wanted to start a newsletter, right? What was the goal? Start a newsletter, very specific. It was a very specific goal to start a newsletter. And then looking at how can I, from the measurable perspective, how do you know you're achieving that goal? I'm publishing weekly. So I have a weekly schedule for my publications. So it's measurable. Every week, one newsletter. Every week, one newsletter. You look at the A, the achievable. Factoring my full-time job and other things I do, is it possible to have one newsletter every week? I told myself, yes, I can use different tools, including generative AI tools, to help me refine my content quickly, right? Then relevant, what am I going to talk about? Like I said, both with my job and outside my job, I'm very keen on productivity. And after talking to a lot of people, I saw that people struggled with productivity, right? That's why if you look at my newsletter, the theme is mainly around how can you improve your productivity, your time management, your focus, your energy, and all of that stuff. So I knew it was going to be relevant because I've done, I'll say, a small market survey or market research and found that people wanted to improve their productivity. And then in terms of timeline, so I gave myself, I was going to start. I had the plan last year, but I told myself I was going to start in January. So there was a time frame for what I wanted to do. And if I did not meet that time frame, then I didn't meet my goal. So I had to force myself, even when I wasn't very comfortable. I told myself there is a timeline for this. I've set in the time and I have to do it. So that's a typical example of how you use the SMART goal setting framework. Make it very specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound. Yep.
Thanks for sharing that. And now, probably those listening that, let's say, they're in a full time job and they want to make something on the side, but they don't have time for it, they realize that they can apply frameworks like this in order to actually figure out how they can implement something more of their passion or a skill that they are good at and can share with others. That's what it's all about, to inspire others to take action. And especially when it comes to productivity, we all struggle, as you well said, to be productive sometimes. And some people are doing better than others, like you. Any other actionable ways someone can improve productivity by leveraging either tools like you do or other mindset shift in order to literally be more productive, get more done of the more important and impactful stuff, not just the noise?
So for me, there is this, I call it TEFOP, and I'm going to explain what that is. The different themes of productivity. The T is, and that's TEFOP. That's how I put it. And that's what I usually try to communicate. The T is time management, right? Time is your biggest asset you have as a human being. That's something nobody can pay you enough for, and that's something that just keeps going. So the T in productivity or improving your productivity is, what can I do to improve my time management? How can I manage my time a bit more efficiently, a bit better? So that's something one we look into. The E part is your energy. To be very productive, you need to have the right level of energy to do the things you need to do daily. If your energy is not up there, you will not be very productive. Let's say you didn't have a good night's sleep. That will affect your energy, and there are chances that you'll be less productive that day. We have the F, which is focus. So a lot of people say they don't have time, but the truth is they don't have time to do the important things they want to do. For a lot of people, they are distracted. We all have 24 hours. Trust me, if you actually try to calculate how much time you spend doing very productive things, you realize that you have 2 or 3 hours that you don't do any focus thing. You might not even be able to account for what you're doing. So you have to look for opportunities to be very focused and remove those distractions. The O is for organization. How do you organize yourself? I always advocate having two to-do lists. The most important task to-do list, that's just three of them for the day. And then the general to-do list, like laundry, cooking, talking to people, attending meetings. So you should be organized. Know what you have to do. You have to capture that in one way or the other. It will help you plan. So that's the organization. And then finally, the psychological part of productivity, which is what some people don't leverage on. So I'll give you an example. Some people say they are morning people, right? That's when their energy is high. That's where psychologically they feel enabled. It's a new day, it's a fresh start. So that if you notice that's the kind of person you are, you need to play to that strength. There are some people who, if they get the big things done for the day, psychologically they feel like they are winning and they're going to win. So if you're that kind of person, always schedule the most difficult task you have for the day in the morning. So that's a psychological effect that leads to better productivity. While there are some others that they prefer to do the basic things first and then build on it. It's also psychology, right? So these are like five themes under which I encourage people. I write about productivity, I coach people on productivity, and I use in my personal life. I look at my time management, I look at my energy, I look at the focus level, the organization, and then psychologically how the drives, the I would say stimuli that will make me very productive. So if you're struggling with not having enough time and you want to increase your productivity, you should look across all of this. And then you can use technology as an enabler. That is why productivity is more of an internal motivated thing than external. Because even with the right technology, if you're not into it, the technology cannot do it for you. So technology is an enabler, and then collaborating with other people is also a huge enabler in, I'll say, my own productivity world. So you have the things you're responsible for, and then under you have the external things that are not coming from you but can help you. Technology and partnerships, collaborations to help you become productive.
I really like that, especially because you're so right. It all starts from within. If we cannot identify our own behaviors, our own psychology, and apply that after that to leverage with tools, other people, or money, it's so hard to actually make it done. And let's start with the internal part. For example, myself, I didn't realize the problem that I had when I was not productive comes from internal struggles. For example, I wasn't aware that I work best at the first hour in the morning right after I wake up, without having breakfast, without having any other thing, rather than wake up, wash myself, and sit and start working. Because before that, I was doing the other way. I was starting, having some other morning routines, eating, and by the time I got to my desk, I was already tired, already sluggish, because probably I didn't eat the right things in the morning and so on. And since I start leveraging that and focus, like you said, on the right things first time in the morning, the most impactful tasks, and as well the ones that give me motivation to feel that I'm winning the game of the day, that I'm actually progressing, that push me further and actually make my day successful. And let's say that those listening nail down in which time of the day they are more productive. In the same time, they realize that they lose a lot of time with things that don't move the needle. How do they identify those things that derailing the day for them without even realizing?
I think there are different things people can do, and I'll share from my experience on. So I believe in self-awareness, right? That's where you tell yourself the truth about how you're performing, right? Being very self-aware. So you need to sit down, take a piece of paper, and write out what are your typical day-to-day activities. Right? There are some things that can jump in here and there, but there are things you will normally do every day. For example, you wake up, you need to shower, you need to go to work, you need to talk to someone, right? Write out all those things. The ones that always happen, you always have to do. That's the best place to optimize your productivity because you do all those things, they are almost constant. So what do I really do within those periods and how can I get back some time? For example, TV or television, 3 hours every day for maybe an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, an hour in the evening, right? You need to be honest with yourself. And that can include on your mobile phone. You're on YouTube, you're watching some videos that are not directly impacting your development. They're just for entertainment. And I'm not saying it's wrong, right? But I'm just giving an instance. Maybe spending 3 hours a day doing that is not helping you be productive and meet your overall objective. But you also need to find what to replace it with because if you just have that time, you've gained it back, but you're not doing anything with it. It's only a matter of time you go back to do what you were doing with it. So you need to also first of all, know what you spend most of your time on, and then find other activities to replace those things with important activities. But instead of watching probably comedy skit for 3 hours, you can say, still on YouTube, I'm going to listen to the Nomad Entrepreneurship Show for 1 hour. So if you're so into watching things, now you're actually watching something, but something even more productive or will help you develop yourself. It's you. There's no need lying to yourself, right? Be truthful. So first things first, document all your activities, find out where you're not doing very well, find out the reason why, and then replace those activities with more positive, more productivity centric activities.
Strongly encourage that as well because I wasn't honest with myself. I start documenting those and I, of course, miss a lot of things until I leverage technology to help me. And what I did, for example, probably all I use an Android, but I believe the others are the same. They're having a tracking mode that show you exactly where in what apps are you spending your time. That's one thing that I did. And the other on my laptop, I use a timing app, no affiliate or anything with them, but it's so brilliant because they track exactly also the apps and, for example, on the browser, where you're actually spending time inside the browser. At the end of the day, I was realizing that my phone, I was spending 3.5 hours. And I was like, that's interesting because, for example, in that particular day, I was literally at my laptop for almost 10 hours. Like, how that's possible? Because I was keeping my phone near me, I was just taking my phone, start scrolling without realizing. I was like, shit, that's not okay. Then when looking at my stats on what apps I was losing time, of course, social media, they are built to make us unfortunately dumb and addictive, and they literally are made in such a way that it's almost impossible to put it down. So what I did, I put frictions. I uninstalled the app. That was my first step. And when it comes to my laptop, I just put there are extensions for the browser to block certain apps or social media when I don't need them. Because of course, for example, for LinkedIn, I need to do research. I also use it for business and so on. So I block those apps when I don't need them. Just by adding friction, I realized that I gained so much time back and I was able to be more productive that I was blown away because I didn't realize how much time I was losing. And that's probably another way those listening can apply apart from manually writing down, because sometimes we are just not honest. That's the reality with ourselves. I was talking to my parents and I was like, how much time are you spending on social media? Because you're always on. And they're like, oh, not much, maximum half hour a day, 1 hour a day. Guess what? 5, 6 hours a day. And they call us addictive to social media. It's unbelievable when you realize that these devices, they are built to help us, but in the same time, they are literally taking time out of our life. And yeah, how do you deal with that? Like, you have or you had in the past that problem to be addictive to technology and affecting your productivity?
Yeah. So for me, a couple of things I did. One, like I said, is I was brutally honest with myself. I knew that if I had to, after work, do some of my side stuff, then I can't just be on social media scrolling endlessly. Like I made that realization. So what I did, and it was a gradual process. So I started using the time boxing method. Turn off the internet for 1 hour, focus, get work done, bring it back the phone, look at it quickly scroll through it for another 30 minutes. At least that was how I started. So I was able to build that habit of not being very addicted to my phone. For example, every night before I sleep, I turn off my internet because I don't want to receive message. I don't want the beep or notification to be the first thing I see or do when I wake up. As simple as that is, if you know how much it has affected my productivity, you'll be surprised because then I do the very important things I like. I wake up in the morning, obviously talk with my wife, we pray, do a little bit of just thinking, planning for the day, get my most important task or one of them at least done. Then I pick up my phone to look at what notifications I have. So just being able to shut down that internet, it has helped me tremendously. And for different people, it might take different times or different methods. But what I will advise is, as much as possible, yeah, don't start your day looking at your screen. Do something outside social media. It will give you the stamina to then build on it throughout the day. Another thing you can do is replace the unmeaningful things you do on social media with meaningful things. That is another way. So if you feel you have to definitely still look at your phone or be on social media, instead of being probably on Twitter, fighting over a new trend that has no value to you or something that, though you're on your phone, but you're using that time for something more valuable. You're reading an article, you're responding, you're going through people's posts on LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn because yeah, I find a lot of professional contents there. So though I'm on social media, because it's still a social media, but I am actually using that social media time for something more productive. And then once I'm done, I shut the phone, I drop it aside, I try to do other things. So if you're addicted to social media and technology, find a way to have an off time where you just shut it down. It might take a while, but start with 10 minutes. Don't look at your phone for 10 minutes. Move it to 20 minutes, move it to 30 minutes, and before you gain full control. Another simple technique people use is keeping your phone away from the room you're currently working. So just keep the phone away, lock it off somewhere, or even give it to somebody to hold and then focus. When you're done, pick it up. Schedule the time to look at social media. I have a time to look at it. So it's not like I'm an anti-social media, don't get me wrong. But if I need to be productive, it won't dictate my day for me. Rather, I dictate how I'm going to use it.
At the end of the day, we have control and we can do things. And on that note, I just want to add that what I do, I automatically schedule my phone to shut down in the evening and turn on in the morning, but I put it away. It's not near to me. It's not the first thing that I do in the morning. Of course, there are exceptions. So sometimes I literally cannot stand it. Like, I know I see it somewhere in the room where I put it. Second, I don't sleep in the same room with the phone lately for about, I think, months right now. And that helped as well a
Nice.
lot, because that watching on the screen late in the evening affected my sleep in such a bad way. And that, by shutting it off automatically, I don't hear the noise, the notification, and anything. And when I, even if I take it in my hand, oh, it's shut down. So it's too much hassle to start it on again and so on. So that worked well for me and probably will work for someone that is listening as well. And I'd like to pivot a bit the discussion towards working on our passions outside the job. And especially because the way you pair it with the thing that you're good at and the thing that it's fueling you, it's something that those listening can not only learn from, inspired by, but actually start working on their passion, not just, I don't know, watching TV after they get out of work. What will be your advice for them in order to do so? How do you find your passion? You give your example because that's a nice way when you hear it from others. But how about asking others, man, what I'm good at? What do you see that I'm best at? Or what other tips or ways to find your passion?
A very good question. And I think there are different ways. So I'm not saying this is one shoe fits all. From my experience, there are different indicators. For example, what you really love and what you're passionate about. And so you need to spend time to really ask yourself, what am I truly excited about? If I'm given the opportunity to help someone to create value, what will I do? What value will I like to create for that person? I think that's also the self-awareness part of my in quotes framework for finding things, right? There's always that you start with self-awareness, the skills, and then the strategy. Maybe I'll talk about that a little bit. So ask yourself those questions. What gets me happy? And if you know that, another thing is ask people you work with. Trust me, they see some things that you might not be conscious about because it's something you're used to doing, but it adds so much value to them. Just like I shared, I over time working with different people, one thing they always say to me is you explain things well, you teach well, you try to carry people along. And for me, instead creating, I was seeing a pattern, irrespective of what I was doing, people were saying you explain things the way we like it. So I then started thinking about it. Maybe I'm even supposed to be a teacher or something. And then thinking about it, I actually enjoy explaining things to people. And then by the time I started working, another feedback I got was you do things faster than normal. So that was how first I listened to myself. I asked myself what I liked doing. Then I listened to others, what they thought about what I do and how I'm adding value to them. So it started mapping out a pathway for me. And then coincidentally, when I got into the role I currently do, that has a mix of both, where I have to talk to a lot of people and I have to teach people about being productive with technology. All of a sudden, there was this spark and excitement. I was like, okay, I feel comfortable. Now I actually understand. I have an idea of what I really love. So after you identify what you like, you identify what people think you're good at as well, not just what you think you're good at, but people also see that you're good at it. Then the next thing you want to see is how do I bring that to life? So that's the first step. The second stage is where you then build the skills to be actually good at that thing you perceive now that you are called to do or you're excited about doing. Because without the right skills, even though you love it, even though people say you're good at it, you won't, it might be difficult to convince others who don't know you that you're actually good at that. And you need to convince people for people to listen to you and follow what you say. So you need to build those skills, take out time to learn, take out time to practice, right? And skill is not awareness. People think because I've read something, I'm skilled. You're not skilled because you read it. You're at most knowledgeable about it. The skill is in the doing. So at first you're aware about something, you go and get a comprehensive formal knowledge or informal knowledge. Now you're knowledgeable, but the skill comes when you're actually doing it day to day. You're realizing the nuances around it because not every scenario is documented. So now you're beginning to understand, okay, this is how best to communicate with people of a particular demography. You might not find that written on paper. This is how to communicate on LinkedIn. This is how to use that same content on Twitter. It's not the same communication style. On Facebook, it's different. Right? Those things you won't find on paper, but that's where the skill is built because now you're trying things, you're seeing how they are shifting, and then you're adjusting with it. So tomorrow, if someone comes to say, hey, Wilson, I want to start writing newsletters, how do I go about it? I can give you a book, but I can then, from my experience, share the skill I have in doing that, how I do it faster, how I get feedback. Those are some things you might not necessarily see documented. And then probably you get to the mastery point where you're able to easily diagnose if something is wrong. like you're a master of it, right? That's where we want to be. There are so many people who I follow that are very good at this. Everything they say, you are just hooked on it. You want to listen to them. Those guys are masters. And that's mastery. It's no longer just skill, right? But you've gotten to a point where you really own this thing. If someone was to wake you up and say, tell me about this is what I'm going from your experience. Maybe you're doing AD, and if they check it, they're actually doing ABC. That's mastery level. So that's the second phase under the skill. And then the finally is what I call the strategy phase. Now I know what I want to do. Now I've built the skill. How can I then go ahead to do it? How can I do that? And that's where you have things like having a personal brand, for example, networking, collaborating, partnering with people, right? Those are strategies. Having a dedicated team or people you talk to about what they do and how they do it. You're building connections. A strategy is mainly about around people, resources, and how people perceive you. How can you build trust and credibility? You need to strategize. Who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to follow more? Who do I need to contact? So you're being more strategic around doing that. So you have a full-time job. Now you found what you like. Now you've built the skill. The strategy might be working with others who are doing something similar to then start your own. The strategy might be looking for a job that directly connects with what you like. It might be the strategy so that you keep doing that thing over and over. Again, I know I've talked too much, but I hope that helped.
Man, that's perfect. No, that's what I wanted because you explain so well and you map out the those steps. And what I love about it is the fact that you mention that it's not enough to learn or read about the skill. You have to actually apply, not to mention arrive at the stage where you actually master that skill and are able to do it at a certain level that others cannot. And that's how you stand out, which taps into what you mentioned, actually building a personal brand, become a thought leader in the space and someone that people listen to, go for advice, follow, and take what they say to be true, not just another noise in the background. When it comes to this part, because there's not enough anymore to have a job, build a business, you need to be present. You need to be out there showcasing your expertise, what you're working on, basically either building public or actually sharing your own day-to-day activities. And you start doing that so well already. How you will advise someone that is not there yet? They know they should do it. They know that the personal brand is important. They know that can be a huge leverage in becoming a person of influence. How you advise them to go about it and actually start doing it?
Yeah, good question. I think I made a post 2 or 3 days ago around this on LinkedIn, mostly for career people. My personal opinion, but you can check. I think there are three reasons why most times they know they want to start, or we know we want to start, but we cannot. What do I even share? Like I'm not an entrepreneur that needs to sell something. So what do I share? That's usually the first thing that comes to mind. I'm not very outspoken. Yeah. So the second thing is, okay, even if I know what to share, because with corporate jobs, most times the best you have to communicate is probably a team presentation. Very few people have the opportunity to talk to a lot of people from their roles. For example, when I was in the field, like as an operations engineer, where I have to go into the assets, right? You interact more with machines than you do with humans because you're in the plant most of the day, the production environment. So you're checking this equipment, is it working well? You're tracking and all of that. So you interact with those. And then imagine then you tell me to share something about what I do. I'm not used to sharing. So there will be that anxiety, there will be that fear. I don't know what to say. What if I don't say it correctly? That's usually the second problem. The third problem is I don't have the time. And I think we've talked about the time part a bit. So how do we overcome the first challenge? Because you know you want to start. What do I share? I tell people there are lots of things you can share as a career professional or even a business person. What you do day to day, not everybody does it the way you do it. Not every like it's unique to you. And that's something you can share for people to actually see. Maybe you're the shy guy that now starts sharing something. Not everybody is a shy person, but there are people who are shy and cannot do what you do the way you do it. But by showing that expression of yourself, you being real, you're showing your unique self. There are other people who are very similar to you with what they do. They can then get that confidence to go ahead to do what you're doing. So the first thing you can share is what you do. For example, you're a banker, right? You're a banker and you faced a very difficult client today. You don't need to go and talk about what the deal was about, but you can talk about, I was in this scenario today where there was this very arrogant customer. You won't find it written on paper how to handle that particular customer. There's nowhere it's written. But I was in that scenario and the person just kept screaming at me. I had to handle that scenario in a banking environment, right? That's what you do. There's no, I doubt there's a place where it's written on how to do exactly what you just did. And then you can share that people can relate. Yeah, I'm sure there are lots of bankers who go through what you go through. And they're like, this is how this person handled it. Maybe this is how I should handle it. Or maybe you go to a conference and there's this new standard or compliance check industrially that is needed in the banking field, just keeping along with that. And not everybody might have heard about that. You can say, today I went to this event. It's a public event, so it's not a confidential information, right? It's available everywhere. This is what I gained from interacting with people. This is how I feel this particular new law or regulation is going to affect the banking industry, for example, right? So you have a lot to share. It's just put yourself in the shoes of someone who does not know what you know. What will you tell the person? Then you know what to share. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? We have all this experience day to day. For this example, great examples that you give to anything else, like literally, even let's say how you solve one specific job problem or one specific
Okay.
job experience, like the one that you described with the banker, is not rocket science. You literally have dozens of this experience on a daily basis. And people might ask, all right, but what has that to do with me? It has, because imagine that someone might be in the same situation and you literally tell them how to handle that, for example, arrogant client or that particular scenario and so on. And you help them, give them the blueprint on how to solve that problem. Because as you well mentioned, that might not be written in the books on your manual of how to do your job or how to fix that business problem and so on. And that's really powerful. And speaking of personal brands, where people can reach out to you, connect with you, and check out your stuff, because man, you have a great podcast and newsletter out there.
Yeah, thank you so much. So usually I'm on LinkedIn, mostly in the evenings when I'm back from work. I try to post my contents there. I have a newsletter as well called the GrowthPlug newsletter. I have a podcast called the GrowthPlug podcast. So just look for the GrowthPlug. I'm sure you'll find me somewhere, but mainly on LinkedIn. I, from time to time, Instagram and Facebook. In fact, I have someone managing my Facebook for me because it's not really my best place to be, but from time to time, I go there to look at it. But most times it's the contents I have on LinkedIn that are shared on different platforms. But if you want to reach me, just feel free to shoot me a DM when I'm available. I'll pick it up and we can talk.
Awesome. And for those listening, I'll put the links in the show notes as well. And to wrap things up and people to follow your lead, what they can do in less than 1 week in order to start creating their personal brand, no matter the current situation they have in career, job, or a business. One step they can do in 1 week.
One step in 1 week. So the one step I'll give you in 1 week is go to LinkedIn in quotes for that platform and make a post, a simple post. This is me. This is what I do. And I want to build a personal brand. That's all. Don't think so much about it. Will people like it or not? Don't worry about it. Just do that for a start. And yeah, you see how it goes. So why am I saying it is be intentional, know what you want to do because you already say you want to build a personal brand. So the what is clear, right? The where is clear, LinkedIn. The how is just start with the post and then you get better. If you don't know what to post, just post about yourself, introduce yourself, whatever you're comfortable sharing, and start from there and use the feedback to keep improving yourself.
Nice. I love that, Wilson, especially because that's the first step. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You just have to do
Don't
it,
think
because that first step is the most important one.
I think I shared that also in that post on I'm shy and I don't know how to start. I think my first point was just do it. Have a learner's mindset. Just do it. Don't think about who is going to like it, who is not going to like it. Forget about that. Just do it. Start. Simple one.
Exactly. Man, thank you so much. That's powerful advice. And I'm sure those listening, if they start doing that, sky's the limit, because you never know what can happen when you start building your personal brand. You, yes, you're one of the few that stick to the end. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing so. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so below. And if you got any value from this, please share it with a friend. They might got some value from it as well. Thank you so much, and until next week, pura vida!